Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the day 2 of India Food Nutrition Summit 2021. Today, we would be covering some important sessions on day 2 of our summit, starting with a very interesting panel on Let Food Be the Medicine and Medicine Be the Food. Moving ahead, we would be having our CEO Leadership Dairy Industry panel at 2:40 p.m. Especially, we would like to thank our partners for supporting us. Associate partner, Schneider Electric. Category partners, Antilia Scientific, Kerry, Merck, Testo. Nutrition partner, Hexagon Nutrition. Exhibit partners, Perkin Elmer, Thermo Fisher Scientific. Corporate partners, DuPont Sustainable Solutions, DSM, Triphase Pharmaceuticals Private Limited, CHR Hansen, Aviva. Association partners, Indian Dietetic Association, AFSTI, AIFPA, FSSAI, NABL, and IDA. Just wanted to give you an update that right now we have 1,200 plus participants joining us in this particular summit. Now we move on to our first panel session of the day on an interesting topic on Let Food Be the Medicine and Medicine Be the Food. Some of the key pointers discussed in this panel session will be on nutraceuticals, the front line of battle for consumer health, making nutrition products inexpensive and safe to tackle important unmet health needs, understanding the opportunities and barriers to growth. To discuss on this session, I would like to introduce in the order of sequence the panel members, Mr. Deshraj Sharma, Head Quality India from Ferrero India, Mr. Krishna Kumar Joshi, Regulatory Head ITC, Dr. Rajiv Prashar, Head Quality Kandhari Beverages Private Limited. Joining Dr. Prashar, we have Dr. P. Jose David, Head Regulatory Affairs and Analytical Services from Tata Consumer. Next, we have Dr. Nandan Joshi, Head Medical Affairs, Nutrition India and EM, Dr. Reddy's Laboratory. Joining Dr. Joshi, we have Ms. Shilpa Wadhwa, Head Nutrition and Health Wellness from Nestle India. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Vaibhav Kulkarni, who is the Global Chair for ILSI Board Assembly and Honorable Secretary and Board Member for HADSC. Dr. Kulkarni, since you being the panel moderator, I request you to take the session ahead.
Thanks, Devanshi, and very good morning to all the panel members as well as all the people who are hearing us. Because this has been every time we have this event in person, as I know, every year. But this is the first time that I see, this is, I think, the second time from last year that we are having this session as a virtual session. And I think there are a lot of people who are hearing us. So without wasting time, we'll start with the discussion, but just giving an introduction. Now, nutraceutical, we all know it's a sunshine and business proposition for most of them. What is it? Nutraceutical is a term derived from nutrition and pharmaceutics. The term is applied for the products that are isolated from herbal products, dietary supplements, which is called nutrients as well, specific diets, and processed food such as cereals, soups, and beverages that other than nutrition are also used as medicine. So here, see, this is just a snapshot, but when I see that overall what is happening in the nutraceutical space, you have this Make in India program where a lot of steps were designed, but unfortunately it didn't yield the results that we were looking at. In fact, the production remained stagnant for nutraceutical industry at 17 to 18%. And there is a multiple reason to be optimistic with the initiative of Make in India, despite the COVID hit economy at this point in time. The Indian nutraceutical market is growing at a staggering rate and is set to leave some of the present giants behind in the next few years. Before the COVID pandemic, as you know, the nutraceutical industry was booming due to the growing awareness about the importance of nutrition in the increasing health-conscious population in India. In fact, the nutraceutical market was projected to grow to $18 billion by 2025. However, because of the COVID disruption, the supply chain was disrupted. There was a closure of retail stores as well as e-commerce platforms where stagnantly came to a halt, which had a huge impact on growth and revenue. So this is how when you see overall a sunshine category, a sunshine business proposition, how it is looking at this point in time due to COVID. But there are positives also, and that's what we will try to get the brains of from all the experts that I have at this point in time. So without wasting time, let us go to our experts in the panel and get their point of views on various issues. So moving on to my first question to my first panel member, Dr. Rajiv. A simple human health and for human, why nutraceutical is required? Why we require this?
Thanks, Dr. Babu. So nicely, Dr. Babu, we have put forward the point on nutraceutical. At the time of actually COVID and Corona, we talk a lot on building immunity boosters, nutraceuticals, vitamin supplements and all. So what is the basic purpose? So these nutraceuticals or whatever supplements, can they build the immunity in a day? No. See, over the period, so these nutraceuticals and all, they can provide the immunity. So my point here, so why nutraceuticals are required? Basically, they are required to improve health, general health, you can say, delay aging process, prevent chronic disease, and increase life expectancy. But at the time of like Corona, right now, in spite of taking all nutraceuticals and all, are they effective? So here, in terms of nutritional values, yes, nutraceuticals, they provide a nutritional value to the consumer. But how about the protective effect? This is always a doubtful proposition, because here a lot of research is going on. How much vitamin supplements are nutritional builders, are they assimilated by the body? What's the bioabsorption? So that data still it is debatable. A lot of research currently is being carried out, so it cannot be conclusively comprehended that that consumption of nutraceuticals can build the immunity. See, it's always a long-term effect. So here, my point is, so in spite of a nutraceutical food, healthy food. So healthy food is a proposition which can, because that is a regular consumption and can build the immunity over the time. Because nutraceuticals, so at the time of debility, or maybe person is aging, or maybe at a growing stage, so they can be helpful in terms of providing providing a nutritional value. But providing a immunity in long term needs a lot of research and data. So here now my point, like Dr. Babu, he has told that what is the difference between food, nutraceuticals and drug. So almost it is a loosely connected. You can say it's a loosely connected. Wherever no claim has been made that particular food, so it can be used for a treatment, or it is a preventive. It can be a preventive for a disease, or it can cure a disease. If that claim is not made, then actually it is a food. In case a claim is made, then it comes under the category of nutraceuticals, maybe a drug. So now over to Dr. Babu.
Thank you, Rajiv, for this opening remark on just giving a snapshot on how human health and for human maintenance of human health, why nutraceuticals. Now, one point you made in that was nutraceutical is somewhere between food and drug. So my next question is to Dr. Nandan. Can nutraceutical be really the bridge between food and medicine? And in what way? What kind of impact it can make on the consumer's health? Dr. Nandan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vaibhav, and I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me into this forum. So yes, a nutraceutical can certainly bridge the gap between a food and a medicine. And first of all, why we consume food? I think I will call it that we consume it for fulfillness, to take care of daily requirement of nutrition, calorie intake, as well as for our survival. And why do we take medicines? We take medicines at the time of illness. So it's a spectrum from fulfillness to illness. And there is something missing, which is a very important part, which is in between, and I call it wellness. So nutraceutical can play an extremely important role in this middle segment of wellness. Now, unfortunately, in India, our focus has been for many years either on survival, which is the fulfillness or pleasure of eating in the affluent category, or on the illness. And only because of COVID, and I think the previous speaker started with that, and we are all living in this pandemic. I think this pandemic brought a lot of attention overall to this wellness category. So if we look at, let's take example of diabetes, which is a typical lifestyle disorder. So if you look at diabetes from food perspective, we all know that, there's a general knowledge that we should have a smaller portion size, we should maintain our weight, we should eat more of fruits and vegetables, or we say that we should eat a less amount of high fat, high carbohydrate food, eat less sugar, etc. So that is from a food perspective. And once the diabetes develops, we talk about taking medication, insulin, etc. But there is a bridge in between them where a nutrition can play a very important role. For example, a high fiber, high protein food, we know that protein increases satiety and thus reduces calorie intake. It also improves insulin sensitivity. Also, fiber also gives satiety, reduces the soluble fiber, reduces cholesterol, etc. And also micronutrients, for example, chromium, vitamin D, which has shown to play a very important role in diabetes management. So if you deliver a nutraceutical supplement, either it could be in the form of ready to drink or a powder format of a high fiber, high protein supplement, or it could be a sprinkler format of fiber and micronutrient combination that can be delivered, which can be easily added to food, can play two roles. One, it will act as a food. At the same time, it has clinically proven to have a glycemic control. It improves the blood sugar control, and also has shown a reversal in pre-diabetic patients as well. So this is one example. I mean, there are many examples. The other classic example would be when we say food, we talk about yogurt or dahi, and we talk about, it contains live bacteria. It's good for gut health. Now that's very, very rough definition. The moment you apply the science lens, I think science can bring, a lot of value addition. The moment you put scientific lens, we talk about a specific probiotic strain, specific dosage, duration of, period for which you need to take it, and a specific health benefit it will give in order to prevent future complications, which can, excuse me, which could be IBS or constipation, or now, the research is going into all kinds of direction. So definitely, I think it can play a very, very important role. Only thing is, it should be scientific and it should have a lot of credibility.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, thanks, Dr. Nandan, for this opening remark on this bridging part and how it will impact the consumer. You actually mentioned in one of your lines that various nutrients do play a very significant role in determining the use of that particular formulation, because anyway formulation is made out of those nutrients. So my next question is on that to Krishna Kumar. How do you, as an industry player or as a researcher, you ensure that health benefit out of these nutrients is delivered in a complex food format? How you ensure that these nutrients actually deliver for what they are made for?
So thank you, Vaibhav, and thank you all the panelists. I think there is some issue in this IT-enabled system, or maybe the network issue. However, I understood your question, and I'm sure that I'm loud enough to be here at your end.
Yeah,
So
you are able to.
basically,
We are able
when
to
we
hear
say
you.
that,
Not a problem. We are able to hear you.
okay, great. So basically, when we talk about the nutrients, and the previous speaker has also rightly articulated that something has to be done when we talk about the benefit of that particular nutrients. It's not something that you add just a nutrient in a kind of food format or the nutraceutical or food for special dietary uses, and then you start saying that, oh, it will give you that much of benefits. So basically, the manufacturers often cannot supply and add a nutraceutical to a food when they are formulating these kind of products, and that have acceptable sensory appeal and also desired health benefit. So a careful design of the delivery system has to be there, which will help to protect the sensitivity of the nutraceuticals or the sensitivity of that particular bioactive molecules from and also the impact of the environment, processing stresses encountered during the food manufacturing. So when we say a drug, so probably it is a well defined criteria for that, and you also understood the metrics of a drug when it goes into that. But when we are talking about a food is a complex material. You may use cereals and cereal products. You may use fruit and fruit products. You may use any kind of edible ingredient in your food format, and retaining there the efficacy of that particular molecule is becomes the important part of it. So unfortunately, to the best of my understanding, nutraceuticals basically they are herbal products, and that suffer from different drawbacks and many limitations. For example, ineffective targeting at the site, poor solubility of your ingredient, low permeability of that particular bioactive molecule when it reaches to the site or reaches to the cell, fast metabolism or slow metabolism, and there are several other limitations are there. So the researcher has to focus on these things, and they should also discover and develop a better method of improving the bioavailability and pharmacokinetics and efficacy of these products. I also feel that research should put a lot of focus on the novel drug delivery system. Here, maybe the terminology is not appropriate. What I called in on my terminology is novel bioactive delivery system rather than saying novel drug delivery system. So, because we are not talking about drug, we are talking about the bioactive, which plays a role between, like the previous speaker said, illness to, uh, uh,
Right.
intermediate where you can proactively protect yourself from the diseases. So that novel bioactive delivery system should be developed, and it has many advantages, and it is need to enhance the stability of the nutraceuticals by preventing the physical and chemical degradation. Also,
Right.
a lot of work need to be explored to look into the new strategies to enhance, pharmacokinetics, as I told you, pharmacodynamics. Non-specific toxicity is also very, very important to understand. Immunogenicity is another part where we can look into. Biorecognition and efficacy is also very, very important when we are designing a particular bioactive for a particular health benefit. So better controlled, I would say, novel bioactive delivery systems that can be administered through different routes of the administration, such as you can use a bioactive or the plant material through oral, sublingual, transdermal, transmucosal. And there are many other ways of taking that particular bioactive. So how how we will make these nutraceutical component or compound or ingredient which will facilitate these processes or which will be easily get into your body and put at the desired activity site through these various systems, physical or biological, that need to be understood when we say that okay, this ingredient has a particular health benefit. There are various systems including liposomes, phytosomes, nanoparticles, emulsions, nanoemulsions, microsphere. Now the researchers are talking about these, but fundamentally, no, it is not visible whether the people are working on that or not.
Okay.
Like dendrimers are there, conjugate systems, and a chitosan-based delivery systems are available. People are talking about that. So these drug delivery systems has to be understood. Another example is which is lot of being talked about nano and encapsulation, nanoparticles, nanofibers. So these system must be first thing understood properly, used, and their compatibility with the human biological system has to be understood, including the manufacturing system and manufacturing process. That is something I would like to explain on this particular aspect.
Okay,
Thank
thanks, Krishna, for explaining various complex formats of food. And yes, we can't call it as a good that we don't talk on the use the word drug delivery system in this it's a novel bio this thing system. Okay, so moving on. So I'll go to Deshraj on should this industry be controlled and vouched for high degree of compliance, safety, efficacy, and truthfulness for these claims? Because as you see, what I see from the previous discussions, it's pretty complex. And if it is complex, then do you want, when something is complex, its natural tendency is to control. So do you want a control on this, or what is your take on it?
Dr. Vaibhav, coming directly to your question, and I would like to take first part of this question, like compliance and safety. They are, interrelated things, and when the word compliance comes, is compliance comes with for regulatory purpose. So compliance anyhow we need to meet because it is the law of the land. But when we talk about safety, then it is the important for the industry itself to take a uh, proactive approach and to analyze, because if you talk about the compliance only, then I think the safety aspect is incomplete, because in compliance, and the compliance in India is evolving, and maybe it will take more time to come, because it is a long process. Definitely something is already in place, something is going to come, but as an industry we need to take care of the risk involved. Maybe we can be more proactive and be watchful what are the latest things going in terms of the safety. Not only in India, maybe we can have some reference from developed country and other countries, to benchmark and upgrade our systems and facilities. And I would like to touch upon the advances in this. Like, some countries are very sensitive on the safety, and their norms are very high. For example, I'll take the EU, which is I'm not saying it is going to be a benchmark for us, but it could be one of the reference, and maybe we are better in some other sense also. So I'm not saying that the EU norms are better, but I'm saying like the industry should also focus to identify very emerging safety concern, which is very pertinent to ensuring the high quality nutraceuticals. And if I talk about safety aspect, then safety related to safety related to heavy metals, very big concern because it's a concentrated form, and microbiological issues, and safety related to allergens, safety related to aflatoxins, and there are other carcinogenic substances, TMCPD, and there are many others actually. So because their concentration of nutraceuticals are more than the pharmaceuticals, but so we need to be very careful. So I would like to address on this aspect, and I want to suggest here that industry should be more proactive, should be 2 steps ahead than the controls and compliance. So we can build this future actually. And the efficacy and label, I'll touch upon after hearing the other participants, and also try to assimilate their views on this, if it is okay, Dr. Weber.
Okay. Thanks, Deshraj, for your crisp response.
So,
Now,
Dr. Weber, I have one point here to add.
yeah, please, Krishna.
Yeah, especially in context of this particular safety related understanding. To the best of my understanding, and if in common parlance also, when we say nutraceuticals, these are the plant materials, and especially the herbs and all these things. Just I'm trying to
Right,
focus
right.
on the herbs part of it. So,
Right.
so basically, unlike in other countries, we do not have a controlled farming kind of structure in India. We don't farm them in a controlled environment. Somebody is picking some herb from X region, Y region, the very small the SMSCs or the small medium enterprises or the small people. They collect the herbs. They get together at one place. They collect it and put it some storage condition and controlled
Right.
environment. So
Right.
because of that particular aspect, it is also very, very important to make sure that the right kind of communication is reaching to these kind of primary guys who are harvesting these crops from the different areas, hilly areas, this areas, that areas. So the communication part and creating awareness is very, very important. And probably we can look like the FSSAI has created some food safety mitra kind of portal where this industry can also coin such terminology like Vagyanik or scientific mitras for those small people who doesn't know much about the safety of
Right.
these. So
Right.
there could be
Right.
fungal attack, there could be bacterial problem, there could be the problem of inorganic substances in your food. So in your drug or the herb. So how to sort out, how to clean, where to keep, how to keep them from away from mycotoxins and fungus, etc., etc. So those kind of, I'm saying, related to safety, those kind of awareness creating program has to be established for this industry.
Yes, I agree. I agree, Krishna. I think this is the need of the hour. But also, there is a thin line, between absolutely controlled and taking some things from the Western or the knowledge on these entire things, and then look how to Indianize it and accordingly move ahead. The next part is, see, these all things we are doing, see, it's safety, efficacy, then getting into truthful claims and all that. No, most important thing in this entire gamut of thing is, or all the manufacturers look at, is how to increase the nutritive value of the food, because that is the one. If you get the entire process right and you increase the nutritive value of your food, then definitely consumers are going to come, and is going to benefit consumer as well as the company who's selling it. So my next question is to again Dr. Rajiv on how to improve nutritive value of food. Can you define some strategies on it? Can we devise some strategies on this? I would like to hear from Rajiv. Dr. Rajiv?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Babu. So, as we know, with the globalization, supply chains actually they look forward for a increased shelf life, higher shelf life product. So, basically, for a higher shelf life product, so there is a need for more of preservatives, more of antioxidants to preserve the vital nutrients. So, are they increased level of these antioxidants or preservatives safe for the food? And how about the bioavailability of the nutrients available in the food? So here, now I think a lot of debate is happening right now on safety of processed foods. So here, my previous colleagues, so they have pointed out, that the nutritive value of a food, it is very important. So if food has to be a medicine, so what strategies we can use? So here, first is fresh food. So availability of the fresh food. So fresh food means product with a lower shelf life, so that less of antioxidants and preservatives has to be there. So then the second point here I would like to make is, so basically food, like lot of substitutions they are happening, like maybe increase of sugar because of rates and or commercial value. So higher salt. So basically that is at the cost of nutrients. So basically, so the strategy has to be first with the reduction of salt, sugar, saturated fats, and trans fats. Then second can be the technological intervention. So like processing. So with the processing, like how many nutrients are available, what is the quantity, how about interactions they are happening between molecules at the time of processing. So that processing parameters has to be controlled. So a lot of research has to happen in the area of processing, so that we can reduce the impact on the nutrients, as well as improving the bioavailability of the nutrients. So here are 3 points. Basically, first is availability of fresh food. Then second can be the reduction of salt, sugar, what I have told. Then third can be the technological intervention. So these are the 3 strategies which can be useful for food to be a medicine. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Over to Dr. Babu.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Rajiv, for providing strategies or defining in a very, very crisp way the 2 or 3 strategies that you're trying to put in about this product. Now, the most important thing for all the manufacturers, all the food business operators, what we call it FBO, is to win the consumer trust. Okay, so doing all these strategies, at the end of the day, how can you define that your strategy is working? The biomarker, or I call it as a marker, is whether consumer is accepting your product in the market. So I would like to ask Shilpa on how to win the consumer trust in this complex yet sunshine category called nutraceuticals.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So yes, Dr. Weber, this is a very, very pertinent question that is being asked these days. You know, how to win trust in general, because trust is difficult to come by these days, and especially for food and you know, the pharma or the nutra industry per se. So just to set a context, you know, right now we are living in this era of information, or rather too much information, misinformation, where fake news is just available on your fingertips, and you know, you want it or you don't want it, but you get it. And it becomes quite difficult to sort out between the right information and the wrong information. And this problem does get compounded by beliefs, the popular beliefs, the popular trend that is going around, things that are being passed on from your friends, your family, from opinion leaders, or whosoever you might even encounter on a social media, right? So all of this makes it you know, even more difficult for the consumer to choose between what is right and what is perceived to be right. and therefore, it makes it very, very difficult for them then to trust the right information, the right product, the right benefit for them, and they may often fall victim to these beliefs or to this entire complex situation of right or versus wrong information. Even when we get into our consumer researches and when we reach out to our consumers to just to check with them about their understanding of health, nutrition per se, uh, most consumers often come back to us saying that they get a lot of conflicting information about what to eat and what to avoid. So there will be a lot of they will find an article sometimes saying, for example, very loosely put, ghee is good for you, and there will be something that says it's not so good for you, or you should be taking in certain controlled amounts. So this conflicting information makes it very difficult to make the right choice, and this sort of puts in the most important need of the hour is to make better education, have more avenues open wherein consumers can have a direct line with probably the manufacturers, where they can tell them more about the various role of nutrients, what benefit do they bring with us, what is the role of food versus dietary supplements. Where does one pick up a dietary supplement? Is it generic? Is it something that everybody can use? Is it only for my child? Is it only for a senior in the family? So all of these questions then come in because there is not so much, I would say, a direct line of communication between the manufacturer and the consumer. So, very briefly put, there are a few things that we as an industry, the food industry, the nutraceutical industry, the pharma industry, in fact, when we are looking at gaining our consumers' trust, the number one always stays commitment to quality, right? Getting the right food, the quality of the product that we are bringing out to the consumer obviously has to be very high quality. We often get question, is this right for me? Is this right for one particular market? Are we giving the same product across? That is that quality needs to be maintained across. The second one is, I would say, is transparency. Uh, Increased need for being more transparent on the labels, having ingredients, or the bioactives or the nutrients laid out in a way that the consumer can understand. Right? It should not be that often things get lost in the jargonry or the translation of how a consumer looks at it versus how a manufacturer expresses it. The third is having more credible and trustworthy on-pack claims, both on health, nutrition, the benefit that the product endeavors to deliver. So it needs to be, within the realms of what is credible, what the product can actually achieve, and not trying to get into the territory where it might be misleading or, a little bit ambitious in terms of what your product can do. Uh, Another thing that I think is very important for especially our market, our country, is very strong consumer communication and consumer service as a pillar. Wherein if there is a consumer who's looking for guidance on how to use the product, there is a line open from the manufacturers, and where the consumer can reach out and can clear his doubts, can get to know more about it. And all of this is not possible unless we have a very strong science background to what the product and is endeavoring to deliver, backed by clinical trials. So we need to have more research. The research needs to be more dynamic, more robust, and we need to ensure that we are moving ahead with the evolving science in terms of getting the right products on the shelves. uh, all of this, I think, will help to build and strengthen the equity that we have with the consumers, and instill more confidence when the consumers reach out for products like this, which will not just benefit a particular manufacturer, but for it will help to get more support for the industry per se.
Okay.
So
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Sherpa, for explaining a lot of things because this question is a very broad based, and I think people take, for example, hours and hours in the boardrooms. This get discussed of how to win the consumer. So I think it's a very larger topic kind of stuff, but you try to explain it in a brief way in this part, what all things needs to be touched. Thank you for that. Moving on, now after consumer, but before reaching consumer, you have a big giant which you have to tackle with. I will not call it as a wrong giant itself, it's a negative preposition. There's a regulatory barriers for all the countries, okay, which may hamper or may help to grow a category. So now I would like to go to Dr. David. So what do you think are the for the growth of this nutraceutical? What are the regulatory barriers that we are having at this point in time, and what we should be doing for it?
Thank you, Dr. Vaibhav. I mean, moving on from a very general discussion we had on nutraceutical, how it is different from or make it different from drug and food. Dr. Nandan started with classically keeping nutraceutical somewhere in between food and a drug. And we all know that both drug as well as food is highly regulated. And if you look at the development of the regulatory scenario in our country, you know that since December 2016, even nutraceutical has come under the food regulation, and it is regulated now to a certain extent, and it has helped to bring a lot of clarity in the usage of various nutraceutical ingredient in food. When you talk about, we discussed in the beginning that whether nutraceutical is a drug. Yes, it could be a drug, but the advantage there it is taste is not an issue as far as it is considered as a drug, and there are a lot of structure, activity relationship and are well defined. So it is much easier for the consumers to consume it and get the desired effect. Probably in drug scenario, it is well supported by lot of science and documentation. But coming over to the food, and when nutraceuticals are used as primarily as a food ingredient, we come across a lot of regulatory barriers to define which is safe for the consumers. So the primary responsibility of the regulator or the regulation surrounding the nutraceuticals to ensure food safety, as we all know that. And Dr. Shilpa had nicely put it, how it would, the efficacy would, or how we can win the consumers by bringing in all this information in a bit transparent way. I would like to put it this way, that the regulatory barriers currently what we have here is, we talked about safety. I would like to put safety two aspects. One is safety of the ingredient and all the associated effect that it can give when somebody consume it at that level of consumption. And the second aspect is the safety caused by external factors like contaminants. And Krishnamal Joshi explained it, that what is the external contaminants, because most of these nutraceuticals are originating from the botanical extract. So you have an issue of residues, you have issue of other contaminants like microbial contamination. These are all one aspect of the safety which we need to understand and define. The other aspect is the safety related to how the level of consumption of a particular ingredient will have an effect on the body. In the regulatory scenario, nutraceuticals has been mandated to provide a physiological effect and help maintain good health. So that is the primary mandate given to nutraceutical, to maintain good health. I mean, if you look at the claim regulation to a certain extent, we know that what is allowed and what is not allowed as far as a claim is considered. So when we talk about a claim and what purpose it really serves, it is clearly mentioned that the claim aspect, whether it is a product-led or an ingredient-led, claims need to have scientific support. So the regulatory barriers, when I talk about regulatory barriers, I see it from one of the ingredient perspective, the safety of the product. How do we ensure manufacturing process is directly linked to that? What good manufacturing process GMPs are associated with that? How do you ensure a safe product coming out of this? And at what level of consumption this product will not cause adverse effect in the human beings? All this will be under the ambit of regulatory barriers. The second one is the regulatory barrier clearly defines is to how do you ensure a safe fruit and a claim as per what is mentioned on the label. Is it a very transparent communication you are giving to the consumer that what beneficial effect one can expect from consumption of this product? So when I look at the regulatory barriers, it is primarily depending on these two aspects: the safety of the product from an ingredient perspective, and the what is allowed as a claim, or how this particular ingredient will help to maintain a good health. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. David. I know the two aspects, safety and how the ingredient will maintain the claim perspective on the claim. So now, once we covered the consumers, the scientific arena, the claim part, the safety part, the regulatory part, now the most important thing that as a country, we have a lot of people living under they are not economically on a positive side of the trend. So we also want, see, that sustainable development goal, we also want our nation or the population of our nation to be there in to be well nutrition. So looking at that, can we I will go to Krishna. Can you tell us ways to deliver nutrition to the most vulnerable, economically challenged society?
Yeah, thank you, Vaibhav. Yes, that's an important aspect. The business is at one end, the high income strata is at one end, and at the other end, we are dealing with so many, you know, comorbidities, or you tell that, communicable diseases, etc., etc. At the level where the people are economically not very healthy or very sound in that sense. So as a sustainable business, when we talk about the affluent market only, or the sustainable business means that the benefit of that particular aspect has to reach to the most sensitive and economically challenged society. So especially the health policy promotions for underprivileged sections of the society who are not only economically but have less knowledge about the benefit of the dietary supplements. So the people are, one end, they are economically weak, but at the same time, knowledge wise also they are very weak. You can understand, if a person living in villages or the tier 2 or tier 3 cities, how many plants and botanicals are available around him? Is he aware about the benefit of those particular? For example, you take a millet, the people have at the villages, the people have stopped eating millets, but it is going into the cities and affluent peoples who knows that certain health benefit of it. So it is very, very important and pertinent to communicate this particular aspect to the economically weaker section of our society. So this is one about something I felt that, you know, knowledge sharing and communication is very, very important to that part. I'm not talking about the affluent societies in cities and all. To that particular part I'm talking about. Second, you might have seen a lot of development agencies are available in India. So many NGOs are working. I don't know whether, you know, the government policies or the right kind of science is reaching to these unprivileged section or not. I don't know who is doing what is something I don't know, So if we have that, I will not give you a number. Yesterday I was reading one number. It's very huge. So many NGOs are working in India, small, big, etc. No, it was my just came from my inside saying that if these kind of people are, you know, highly intellectual peoples are working on ground, then why my country's, you know, unprivileged section is not improving? So, what I'm saying is a lot of development agencies are there. They may identify and play a supportive role in ensuring that these policies, if there are these particular unprivileged sections, so these policies have an you know, explicit focus on the poor health objectives. So we need to identify what are those, you know, objectives which are related to the poor health. Supportive role in ensuring that policy has appropriately framed and appropriately communicated to the ground level also. So there are many people, you know, consultative approach can be, you know, adopted. These NGOs or the development partners or the agencies can be engaged with the government, civil society, etc. And then, you know, they should work on that. The third part, which I felt is, you know, improvement and expansion in use of information and communication technology in training and educating these guys or those sections for understanding the long-term benefit of the dietary supplement or the nutraceutical, that should be undertaken. Abhi kya ho raha hai? The people are talking about, okay, iron ki kami hai, hemoglobin kam ho gaya, this ho gaya, that ho gaya, but how to address that? Through the nutraceuticals or the food for special dietary users or
Okay.
FSU, etc. How to, you know, imbibe
Okay.
these information into our communications.
Okay.
So these are
Thanks,
the few
Krishna.
things I thought, you know, and obviously, you know, you have midday meal scheme, you have ICDS
Yeah.
programs, so many other
Yeah.
government programs are there
Yeah.
wherein these particular aspects will be instituted.
Yeah, thanks, Krishna. Because now we are left with only 5 minutes, and I think I'll go to the question that has been asked to us, and then we can take a last question. My last the question that has been asked by Dr. Sanjeev Tripathi, and I think anybody from the panel can take it. What are the guidelines of use of herb in FSS? Any panel member who wants to take this?
Dr. Vaibhav, I can take this. See,
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Dr. David.
As per the regulation in FSSA nutraceutical regulation, what is the level at which this organ or the herbal extracts can be consumed is defined. What are the herbal extract will come under the definition of nutraceuticals is given, and what is the marker compounds wherever it is applicable is also given, and what is the level at which this can be consumed, whether it is in a leaf form, whether it is in a powder form, whether it is in an extract form, it is all clearly defined. So nutraceutical regulation will give a clear answer for this particular question. It is available. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. David. I think you have answered very crisply to this question, and hope Dr. Tripathi looks into that. So my last question of the day, where we have a couple of minutes now, is okay. We heard all of you. Now for nutraceutical, what's next? And I want a very rapid fire kind of a round. Don't want to waste more time. The first thing it comes to your mind, you need to say for nutraceutical, what's next? Now I'll start with Deshraj, and we can quickly, rapid firely answer this question. Deshraj, you're on mute.
Sorry, Dr. Vaibhav. I think the one thing I would like to suggest is the next step is to be, upmanship in this field and industry can do it. I think this is my suggestion here.
Okay, thanks, Deshraj. Krishna, what about you?
I didn't heard your question, Vaibhav.
No,
Can you
I was
repeat
saying for nutraceutical, what next? And I want a very one-liner from you, just top of the mind.
So I think for me it is very, very important to create an awareness about the nutraceutical and health supplement, which will drive the business. And right kind of communication. Yeah.
Thanks, Krishna. Dr. Rajiv.
Dr. Vaibhav. So here maybe like today this virus is, tomorrow another virus can be there. So basically it is just, so focus has to be like Dr. Nandan has told, focus has to be on the wellness. So long term building the immunity. So a lot of work has to be done on that area. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Shilpa.
I think we also need to keep in mind the specificity of the benefit that we are talking about. So it should move away from being very generic benefit that the product endeavors to deliver to being a little bit more specific and problem solving is what I would want a nutraceutical to do.
Dr. Nandan.
Yeah, I would say we need to bring more credibility with proper evidence building and with Indian data to make it more authenticated in a long run. Thanks.
Dr. David.
What I see is you need to develop a strong scientific evidences for the claims and communicate it in a very sound way to the consumers.
Thanks all the panelists for maintaining the time and giving a very crisp answer to this last question. This is kind of a very rapid fire kind of round. And I think a lot of people, I know this entire nutraceutical sunshine category is here to stay from my point of view. And we need to work closely with the government to see that this, as our panelists, esteemed panelists also say, that we need to have a credible evidences that needs to be created for this category to grow. And it needs to be used for a consumer health benefit as well. So with that note, I thank all the panelists for providing their candid response to all the questions what I've asked. And over to you, Devanshi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kulkarni. Thank you so much, Dr. Kulkarni, and all the panel members for joining in and kickstarting this day 2 of our India Food Nutrition Summit with this wonderful panel session. And a special thanks to Dr. Kulkarni for wonderfully moderating this panel session. And just to give you a quick update that we have currently an exact number of 1,300 participants watching live at this particular moment. So thank you so much once again.
That's fantastic. That I call as a sunshine category. That's the reason I call this as a sunshine category.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you
so much once again for giving us your time.
Fantastic panel session. Thank you, Devanshi. Thank you all till we meet.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
We look forward